So, we haven't done this in a while with both of us, but we're going to do the Cadiz preview for this match, and it's going to be a bit of a nothing game, really. As I think in terms of both teams, I think Cadiz still have a lot to fight for, which is obviously the potential of relegation. I'm not sure how far they are away from relegation, but I think they still got relegation to play for, and they've got to be careful. Cadiz, they're going to be ready, but I think the real big game in La Liga now is probably next week against Real Betis. This probably is just going to be a bit of a, just a resting game, a bit of a game where the youngsters can get a bit of a chance in the first team. The next week is going to be the real big one, the game which most of us are going to put a lot of emphasis onto as a dress rehearsal for Liverpool, which is what most people are building it up as. So, I mean, earlier this season, we did drop points against Cadiz, 0-0 draw, I believe, in a game which was horrible to watch because we didn't create anything, Cadiz didn't do much either, and it was just a bit of a nothing game. And now, I think you could expect Cadiz to come out a bit more out of their shell due to the fact they are playing for relegation. And hopefully we see something like we did last week against, or on Thursday, with Levante. And I think we've done well in that game against Levante, and I think so we need to do something similar against a similar level of opposition. Obviously, they do play differently, very differently. Levante actually try to, do implement a good style of football, and unlike Cadiz, who, let's be honest, don't play very nice football. But what do you think this game is really going to hold for Real Madrid, and what do you think the game's going to be like?
Okay, well, I think it's quite similar to the Atletico Madrid game, where the squad will be so much rotated that I don't think that the result will matter much. It's more like just building up fitness, in my opinion. Just this one, because like you said, even said Low confirmed the exact same thing you said. This match against Cadiz will be an opportunity for other players to have minutes. However, the Betis game the following week, that will be the match where you can say it's like a final game to get everything down packed for the Champions League final. So I don't think the result and scoreline will matter much. However, it's important to win, etc. For confidence, motivation. However, I don't think it will have much of an impact if we lose or draw, similar to the game against Atletico Madrid, because the scoreline will be the scoreline. The team will be so heavily shifted. More players will get opportunities. I also hope that players like Sergio Ribas may have get some minutes. Antonio Blanco may have get some minutes, but that's okay. There are players in the first team who hasn't had much minutes this season. Maybe Hazard, I guess. Who else is in the squad? Carvajal is back, but I'm not too sure how Ancelotti is going to manage the team. But I hope he manages him well, because, like I said, it's just about building momentum, playing the players who lack game time, resting the ones who have been featuring much, So Ancelotti is the only one who would know how he's going to handle the squad.
Yeah, so without further ado, there's not much to say about Cadiz. It's not like last week where I did Atletico, and I highlighted the danger players. There's not many of them on Cadiz's side, and I'm not very up to date with Cadiz in terms of their lineups. I know that their two strikers tend to be Anthony Lozano as well as Alvaro Negredo. Anthony Lozano is quite a quick forward. He's pacey, but he really is just an okay La Liga player, let's be honest. And I think Negredo, obviously great finisher, but he's not very mobile at his point. And I think on the bench they've got players like Lucas Perez, who is a very, very good player. I think he should be playing at a higher level than Cadiz, to be totally honest. I think he is a better player than Cadiz. And also Florin Andone, who used to be a very, very good player for Deportivo La Coruña, if you remember. And yeah, I think it's going to be a tough match. I think to get some goals. But I think if one goes in, I think that opens the floodgates to get loads more. I think that's going to be the key. Getting goal early, I think that's the point where you realise, yeah, Cadiz ain't going to get anything out of this match, Well, at the point where it realises, we get to 60, 70 minutes without a goal, I think that's the game. That's the point where I think Cadiz will be superior to us. I think that's where Cadiz want us, which is 0-0, 60 minutes, 70 minutes, to have that mental battle at the end just to keep fighting. And I think that's what Cadiz want in this game. So without further ado, let's get into our starting lineups. Now, goalkeeper. The three goalkeepers, there's no Courtois in this one, so I've gone for Lunin. Carlo Ancelotti confirmed this already. I think it's gonna be good that if Lunin gets some games, he's played against Atleti, now he's playing against Cadiz, which is very, very good for him. And I'm really excited to see what he shows today. Lunin played really well last week against Atletico Madrid. He was quite unlucky to lose that match, really, because he did play quite well. But no Courtois. I assume you've gone Lunin as well.
Yeah, of course, because Lunin deserves minutes. He did well against Atletico Madrid, like you said. Whenever he plays, he's been good. I wouldn't say he's been fantastic, but he's been good, and he showed some good signs. As a goalkeeper, you need consistency, to build up momentum, and he hasn't had that. But he deserves an opportunity, another one today, which would be his final game of the season, obviously.
Yeah, and obviously, there's no. I don't think there's a player with such an unfortunate record for Real Madrid to lose 3 games out of 5, which is absolutely insane if you think about it. But let's move on to the back four. Now, there is going to be a rotated back four because for me, at right back, I don't think Carvajal should play this game. I think it should 100% be Lucas Vazquez at right back here. I think Carvajal's just recovered from an injury, and I think Lucas Vazquez has to play this game. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Lucas should play as well. Like you said, Carvajal has just came back, and of course, Carvajal and Mendy had injury issues this season. So whenever they are back from injury, I'm sure they should just play one game in, one game out. Just to avoid any injuries and just to be careful with them. The main goal is a Champions League final, and they should get an opportunity next week, to build back up that momentum. But I assume that Mendy is a player who, when he is rested, he plays better, in my opinion. So like last week, he was fully rested. He did well. Not last week against Levante, he did well. But the entire team did well, but he was also really good on that day. So I think he and Carvajal should be rested. And for my fullbacks, I'll go for Lucas and Nacho.
Yeah, I've gone for Ferland Mendy here. I think, honestly, I don't think that we should play Militao. I think he should get another rest here. But I assume for the centre backs, you've gone for Vallejo as well as Eder Militao for you.
Yeah, I've gone for Eder Militao because I don't think he played in the last 2. I'm not too sure even if he played in the last 2 games, or if he played in the last 2 games, if he did against Atletico for like 60 minutes, then he didn't fit here against Levante, so I'm sure Ancelotti would want to get him in as well. But like I said, I have no issue if the squad is heavily switched, so I don't mind if Gia or even Casemiro plays at centre back, because even Casemiro missed the last game.
Yeah, and it's fair to say that if Mario Gila does play this game, I don't think he's going to be tested much. So I think, if there is a game to play Mario Gila, I think this would be a good opportunity instead of somewhere like, Espanyol, I think, was not the greatest of times to play him because, there are better attackers for Espanyol, players like Raul de Tomas who are dangerous. I think Cadiz is probably the right level of opposition. We should be trying Gila out. So that's my opinion on that. But in terms of the midfield, now, you've got obviously Toni Kroos in the squad. Casemiro is also in the squad, as well as Valverde and Camavinga. Dani Ceballos has also returned to the squad after missing out last time due to a little knock he picked up. I think it was in training. And I think Modric has been dropped from the squad. So it's going to be a bit of a mix and match midfield for this one. I think for me, I would put in a midfield three of Toni Kroos, Casemiro, and Camavinga for this match. But what would you go for here?
Yeah, I would also like to stick with that midfield, and of course, Dani Ceballos should get minutes at the end of the game, but he just came back after injury, so I'm not too sure if he should start. So yeah, the best option would be Toni Kroos, Camavinga, and Casemiro. I think that's a good setting. Give Camavinga another opportunity to push forward if he has both Kroos and Casemiro, who isn't like the box-to-box midfielder type. So I guess Camavinga will have opportunity to push forward again.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to talk about that midfield. I think Camavinga has to start and really perform. I think it's going to be a good game for him to just rack up those minutes at his age, and I think Casemiro, just to get him back in the swing of things, as well as Toni Kroos, I think it'll be useful. And to break down that deep block, I think Toni Kroos should play this match. But the real talking points are going to come in that attack, and the reason being, there is no Vinicius Junior in the squad list. There is no Benzema in the squad list. There is no Bale in the squad list. I think that's what I was going to go for. And sorry.
Bale isn't in the squad. I have it up at the moment.
Yeah. So also there's no Jovic as well, which is it's going to be concerning for him. I don't think it's going to be concerning for us because we've seen his last performance against Atletico Madrid. He laboured really quite a lot in that performance. But what we've got an option of is Hazard, Asensio, Rodrigo, Mariano, and Juanmi Latasa. Now, for me, my front three, I'm going to go for front three of Eden Hazard, Juanmi Latasa, and Marco Asensio. I think that should be the front three. Maybe I think if Hazard isn't fit to play, I think it should start with Rodrigo and then Hazard comes on later on. I think Carlo Ancelotti said a 30-minute cameo. But I think that would be a good amount of time for Hazard to play. And let's not mention the fact that if Hazard does start picking up the form between now and Real Betis, we've got another weapon on the bench against Liverpool, which would be 100% really useful, because that is what we need. We've seen Hazard play brilliant matches for Chelsea against Liverpool in the past. I remember the one in his last season where he scored that absolutely banging goal. Yeah, he scored that banging goal, dribbled through the Liverpool defenders and just slotted it home. It was just fantastic, and we've seen him do that over the years so many times. And I think he'll be such an important weapon if he's fit, if he's available, if he's in form. I think that's going to be key. As well as Asensio. Let's not forget. Ultimately he's not going to put in a good performance, but if he can come into the final and score a goal, then no one's complaining. No one is complaining. And obviously, my choice for Latasa up front, I think, we should just try and go for something new, see if Latasa is going to be good enough for maybe playing the backup striker role. Obviously, Mbappe will play that role, but third choice striker, if Latasa is able to do so, I think we need to see that happening, because I don't want really Mariano or Jovic at the club next year. If we have to get a proper senior backup, I would rather it be Borja Mayoral, who we will talk about in the loan tracker bit in the second section of today's podcast. But I do think Latasa would be my player for up front. I think young player. He's really stepped up for Castilla this season instead of Hugo Duro when Hugo Duro obviously left last season. I think in the absence, I think Latasa's really done well despite Castilla not doing particularly well. And I think we should see what he's made of in this match, and I think it will be a tough match for him. But I think he plays against this sort of opposition, which are tough, which are unrelenting in terms of defensive stability in the third division all the time. And I think this will be a good test for him. So, who are your front three?
Yeah, honestly, I would definitely stick with the exact same thing you said, except for maybe Hazard out and Rodrigo in, because maybe Hazard, it might be a bit too soon for him to maybe have a start. Maybe he could play the first 45 minutes and you have Rodrigo coming for the final 45. But I would like to see Latasa in the starting 11 as well, because I'm sure Ancelotti wants to use him, because if he didn't, I don't think Jovic is injured. He may have just included Jovic in the squad and played Diaz and Jovic for maybe 60 and 30 minutes respectively. But for me, this is why I maybe wanted someone like Peter or Sergio in the squad, because of course the attack, it's a bit thin. There are 5 players and I would have loved for both of them to have an opportunity on today, because it's so important for them just to have minutes to the first team. And like we mentioned, this is the last opportunity for most of these players to have minutes for this season. So it's a bit disappointing that they're not in. But in relation to Latasa over Diaz in the lineup, I do think that if a player isn't in the coach's plans, Diaz got defeated twice. Um, in the last 2 matches, so maybe a player like Latasa who's in the academy, let's just see what he has. If we're not going to utilize Diaz next season, why keep giving him constant minutes? I'm happy he got the last 2 games, which is important. Well, not the last 2 games. I'm happy he had a cameo against Levante, not Espanyol. And of course, he started against Espanyol as well. So I'm happy he had minutes, but obviously he isn't in the plan. So I would have hoped for maybe academy players to, just have an opportunity as well.
Yeah, and in quick relation to Sergio Arribas, we will be doing an end of season Castilla review later on in a couple of weeks' time. In relation to Sergio Arribas as well, obviously he's had quite a few links to Dortmund. Honestly, if Dortmund come in with a big enough offer and with a buyback, I think we should let him go. To be totally honest, because he's not going to get minutes here. He's just not. And I think Dortmund could utilize him next season. They need some more attacking options. I think they play that number 10 role really well. And Gio Reyna, he's had a very, very bad long term injury. It would be very, very good if we could do it. And learning underneath Marco Reus, in a pretty similar role. I think they play pretty similar styles. At least when he was younger, Marco Reus definitely played in a similar way to Sergio Arribas right now, and I think that could be quite beneficial towards him. And I think if we have a buyback of, let's say, 40, just like we have with Sergio Reguilon, I think it does allow us a few more options. And I do want to see some Castilla players succeed at Real Madrid, but it's unlikely. There's no pathway for him to come through into Real Madrid, especially behind Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., and it looks like Hazard's increasingly likely to stay. Rodrigo's increasingly, his role's increasingly important in this squad, and I think he has to just find some game time at the top level, and I think Dortmund's a great place for him to do that, where he can really just learn how to become a star with Dortmund, and I think that will be huge for Sergio Arribas. But what do you think of the Dortmund links with Arribas?
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for the player, to go in another league in a big team, have an opportunity in one of the best teams and with one of the best fan base in the world, in a league where many young players have an opportunity, and it's difficult to say, well, he may not get opportunities there because he's young, he's playing third division in the Spanish football, but he's been doing well. I think he's a level above that division, in my opinion. We've seen Dortmund give Mokoko, Jadon Sancho opportunities, even Giovanni opportunities in that team. So why can't Sergio have opportunities for them? However, I was maybe just thinking that if the step is too big for him, I was thinking maybe he should have took his time, like something similar to what Odegaard did. Go to the Netherlands, play for maybe a team like Vitesse, or let's just say one. Vitesse, I think Odegaard plays for them as well. So maybe Vitesse, they keep taking that step forward, and then of course you can, whichever team you're at, you have an important role and an important function. Maybe he can just take a step a little above what he normally does. So he won't be struggling to swim in deep waters. But however, he's a talented kid, and if he makes it in Dortmund, I'll be happy for him, and I'm sure he'll be looking for an opportunity like that, and we should definitely give him the opportunity. I think a sale with the buyback clause would be better, because if it's a loan, I don't want it to be like the Reina Jesus issue, where he isn't a Dortmund player. They're not going to keep him, and he just isn't playing anymore for them. So I would like it to be like a sale at the buyback clause. I think that's best for all parties involved.
Yeah, and also, not to mention the stability it would bring if he's just permanently at a club, instead of us moving him to the Netherlands one season, then back to Spain, then to Portugal, then to Germany. It just brings some good, much needed stability, and also if Dortmund, if Dortmund is too much of a step up, Dortmund can take a good action, like sending him out on loan to a club in the second division of Germany, maybe somewhere like Hamburg. Or newly relegated Hertha Berlin, somewhere like that could be a loan that Dortmund could exercise, and I think Dortmund have these good plans for these youngsters. We've been linked with Moukoko, like you mentioned, with his development. His development's going really well under Dortmund, and despite him probably not being of the Dortmund ability right now, he's probably one of the greatest youth players ever with his record, but he's probably not of Dortmund standard right now. However, they are giving him chances in the first team, and he did score the winner against Hertha Berlin on the weekend yesterday. So that's my thoughts on Sergio Arribas. But obviously we'll talk more about this in a couple of weeks' time for Castilla. Maybe as a deal is sorted by that point, but we never know. So that's it for this Cadiz preview. I think it's going to be a pretty nothing game, but I really hope we can score some goals like we did midweek against Levante. But apart from that, that's it for this this section. We'll join us for the next section after this short interval. Okay, so this second part of today's podcast is the final loan tracker for this season. Now, we've done 2 previous episodes. If you haven't seen them already, please do check them out. Where we have looked at the six players out on loan. Obviously, those situations have changed quite a bit. For I would say 2 of them, they've changed dramatically, I think, and we'll get onto those in a second. But we'll start with one of them, and that I just talked about, and that is Brahim Diaz. Now, at the start of this season, he was on fire with Milan. He was doing absolutely fantastic. He was creating everything that Milan did well. He was part of it. He was the heart of their creativity, heart of their progressive ability. He was at the heart of some of their goals as well. And I think he was just doing fantastically, replacing Hakan Çalhanoğlu. But he's kind of just dropped. I think, in the second loan tracker, I think he did drop a little bit, but at that point we couldn't really detect anything. It was just a bit of going back to normal numbers. But now, at the end of the season, looking back on it, he's just burnt out a little bit, and I think honestly, next season I don't think he should play for Real Madrid. Certainly not here in terms of just playing here, but I think maybe another loan. Maybe Milan do exercise the buyout option. I think there is a buyout option on his deal, but I think he's just not done well enough. I think it's been a 20 game goal drought. I've watched a lot of Milan's matches this season. Too much in my opinion. I think I've watched way too much Milan matches. Watching them against like Bologna and stuff, which is they're not exactly the most exciting team. But every time Brahim Diaz does play, he's not really that involved, which is kind of concerning. If you're really taking it seriously, I mean, he's just not he's just not been involved that much this season as you would have hoped, and he's just not been in amongst the goals, the assists. His numbers aren't great. He doesn't perform brilliantly, and he's just not been brilliant. So, what are your thoughts on Brahim Diaz?
Yeah, and I share the same thoughts with you. I didn't think that he was a bit tired. When he first started jumping off, a long time has passed since then. He's now in and out of the squad. When he starts, he's substituted maybe after 15 minutes, 16 minutes. I don't think let's just say he has the same purpose, and I don't think the football goes through him anymore. I think he maybe the coach is trying to switch it up a bit. Sometimes Cassie plays there, sometimes there are two forwards. Cadiz plays behind the striker. Of course, if the game isn't going through as a center attacking midfielder, then of course they're going to struggle, and maybe the games are going to pass you by. So it seemed that when he had that dip in form, of course, the coach maybe started to rely on other players, to take the team forward and to have those impacts on the game. It's a bit disappointing. It's not that bad. He's getting minutes, which is important. He has another year at Milan, so I think he just stay there for another year. It's his final year, so I think maybe next season could be a bit better. Of course, they're winning the Scudetto if they can maintain their spot at the top of the table, and that's going to be good for him. But however, he has one more year at Milan. Let him stay there the final year. Let's see how it plays out. Then maybe we can make an analysis of him next year. However, I don't think he did enough, to stay at Madrid if, hypothetically speaking, his loan is finishing this year. And of course, there are so many players at Madrid who would have been ahead of him. So for his sake, I think he should stay at Milan for another year. And let's just see if he can maybe take another step forward and be a bit more consistent.
And it's not even I think what's more concerning is that it's not a case of Milan are just not good at developing players, because just on his left you can see Rafael Leão doing so well for them. I mean, he's been brilliant all season long, constantly being a threat, and you can just see Leão playing so well, and yet Diaz not playing not so well, and I think that's more of a concern to me. But I really hope he does make it at Real Madrid. I think, earlier this season I had hopes that he would do it next season. I think he could do it next season, but now I do think that's going to be delayed a little bit. I think he should, similar to the Sergio Arribas thing we talked about in the last section, he should probably go with a buyback. I think that would be the best form, and then Milan have a little bit more commitment to actually trying to develop him, instead of just just half-heartedly just seeing this guy and then saying, oh well, he's not our player anyway, so we might as well just let him go. That's the problem, and I think he does strengthen our relationship with Milan. So I think, in my opinion, I think we should probably let him go this summer to Milan with a buyback, and I think that would probably be the best course of action there. So let's move on to the next player, which is a player who a lot of Real Madrid fans have wanted back. Me, not so much. I'm not sure what it's like for you, but that's Take Kubo. Now, there's been a lot of people saying that yes, we should bring Take Kubo back, because Vinicius is getting his passport. I'm not sure what the situation is there. I think he should have already got his passport. He's definitely eligible. He was eligible in January, so he should have already got his passport. I don't know what's happened there. Rodrigo will get his passport next January, same with Militao. So those three should free up some the non-EU spots. But now, at this moment in time, that does free up a non-EU spot, and obviously Japanese people are not allowed to get a dual nationality. It's not allowed, which is quite annoying. But with Take Kubo, a lot of people have been saying, let's bring Take Kubo back, because he's really exciting. He's done well for Mallorca this season. To be totally honest, I don't think he has done brilliantly. I don't think there's been much development since that first loan to Mallorca, 2 years ago, where I thought he was fantastic those first 2 years. The first year he was out on loan. Then he went to Villarreal and Getafe last season. and it seemed like he took a step back, and this season once again he's just not really developed much, and I think that's a bit more of a concern. Yes, he is an exciting dribbler, but I do think that there is not enough output out there, if we're talking about for Real Madrid. And if we're talking about, who would you rather have, Marco Asensio or Takekubo? I would honestly take Marco Asensio at this point, because, we need to just get a guy who gets goals. And Marco Asensio, that's going to be a lot more valuable in the league than Takekubo causing problems, because we've already got that with Raul. He's probably more reliable than Mariano Diaz, as well as Luka Jovic. So that's my thoughts on Borja Mayoral. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he is better than both those guys. I thought he was a better player maybe 2 years ago, but my mind have shifted a lot. Borja Mayoral has scored goals this season for Getafe. He scored goals for last year. And of course, I think he scored goals when he spent his time at Madrid. This 17-18 season, I think he's a La Liga goal scorer. He wouldn't complain. He doesn't play much. He wants to come back. I don't think we can spend much money. We're not going to spend anything on him if he's back. Keep him for a year. If it doesn't work out, we sign a young striker, and that's it.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next player, and that's Renier Jesus. Now, Renier has just not played in, and we've talked about this in the last section a bit with Sergio Arribas. He's just not played, and it's because it's not really Dortmund's concern if he doesn't play, and that's probably been the main reason. He just hasn't shown enough quality to play. He played in the Clasica. I watched that. He did basically nothing during the whole match. I don't remember a single notable highlight from him, which is quite disappointing. But he really has to take a step down and reevaluate where he actually is next season. And instead of locking himself into a 2-year loan, I think he has to make sure he stays for 1 year at max. In terms if it doesn't work, and it needs to go better for him next loan, because he's getting what is he 21 maybe? I think he may be 21. We might need to find a good home for him where he's playing week in, week out. Even if he's not playing well, we just need somewhere where he can just play, and that's going to be the most important thing really for him. And just needs to get game time at this point. And even if that isn't good performances, he just needs to get those minutes under his belt, which he hasn't had in the last 2 years with Dortmund. But apart from that, that is it for today's Los Blancos podcast. There will be an Ajax video out today or tomorrow. I'm not sure which day it will be out on, as well as it will be a La Liga review special Los Blancos podcast midweek. So please join me and Sean for that one. But apart from that, that is it for today's Los Blancos podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.